boy, how long has it been since we've had an actual original Pixar film? Wow, it really has been more than 2 years. Y'all better go see this or we're gonna have sequels forever. Not like it's the worst fate, but we have the power to change it. To cut to the chase, did I enjoy it and do I recommend it? Absolutely. Is it the best tear-jerking family love story Pixar has ever made? Heck no. Kind of as I expected, Onward lands pretty solidly in Pixar's middle, having left some audiences not at all unhappy, but mildly underwhelmed. I think that Pixar's massive reputation is somewhat working against it, but there is one aspect that does feel lesser than their usual. It's that the premise for seeing a world of fantasy creatures progress to our modern age just feels too normal. It very much just looks and feels like our world, but with some slight Tolkien-esque architecture touches, some Celtic flavor in its soundtrack, and a lot of pun product names. Remember Zootopia and seeing all the ways its design accommodated for all of these varying species and sizes? Onward also has creatures of varying shapes and sizes, and no alternative designs that seem to be accommodating for any of them. And it's not just its background. The first part of this movie, including the base character personalities of the elf brothers Ian and Barley, kind of feel like the setup of a lot of other teen movies. The skinny shy one who wants to generically fit in, and the bombastic big one. Now, some of that is a factor that's in a lot of movies, that it just feels like it takes a while to get going because you're going through all of the intro information that audiences already learned from the trailers. But I also think that part of this whole slightly bland setup might be deliberate. The idea for this world is that we used to have magic, but learning magic was difficult, so instead the world relied on technology. So at the start, when the world has no magic, the world is boring. Thus, the more magic that gets introduced into the story and the world, the more exciting it becomes. And the movie absolutely gets better the longer it goes on. That said, if it was their intention to make the first part deliberately mundane, they succeeded a little bit too well. They still probably had some room to have a bit more fun with their idea. Now, I do admit that I'm not somebody that knows a whole lot about D&D, so I acknowledge that there may just be some jokes and references that I'm missing that others are having more fun with. It did seem like in this world their curses might be references, but I also felt similarly that they didn't play with the whole half-dad idea as much as I thought they would. Heck, most of the time you barely remember he's even there. But Pixar's style is usually to stick to the emotional core rather than relying on a bunch of easy lowbrow jokes. The dad is still used for various decent visual gags, but mostly keeps the story focused on the brothers, who, while questing to finish their dad's spell, are confronted by a multitude of obstacles where they have to learn spells, needing to be performed by low-confidence Ian, being the only magically attuned one, and enthusiastically coached by Barley, who knows everything about magic from his Magic the Gathering collection. I mean, totally historically accurate collectible card game that totally exists. And one of the big reasons why this journey and relationship works is because despite being the magic enthusiast, Barley is wholly supportive and never once jealous of Ian, because that would have just put a sour taste on the entire thing. And all throughout, the journey is sprinkled with really nice character moments. It's like Ian having a conversation with his father's old recording, Barley talking about his memories of his father, the highway fight with the pixies is surprisingly intense, if maybe a little overextended, and as much as I think the half-dad was underutilized, for the scenes where he does do something, it's amazing how much distinct personality they were able to get out of just a pair of legs. The character animation where he tries to reach out to his sons, you can feel the expression even though he doesn't have a face. By the way, super lucky that the two prominent memories that people had about him involved the area around his feet. And just for some Disney extra credit, there is an active, living mother and a not evil step-parent. And yes, we do have our first openly gay one-scene Disney character, which is more than we've gotten before, but in regards to the discourse around Disney patting itself on the back for the one-line thing, from what I hear, this wasn't planned as some sort of big Disney coming out ceremony. This was one word that the actress decided to say on the day, and I don't know how much Disney itself has been hyping it up as much as every other reporter and critic who saw it early and wanted clicks on their own articles. So no, it's not a big deal, especially in comparison to other works, but it's not nothing. It was still enough to get it banned and piss off homophobes. Anyway, however well done but simple the boy's journey is, boy does it nail its ending, especially during a year's time where we've had some truly terrible endings. There was the concern about whether the movie would still be rewatchable if on a second time it just felt like the movie would be a crawl to the end, but knowing the ending, it actually reveals how well constructed the movie's story actually is. There's a lot of subtle details, especially in the actions of Barley, that all come together at the end and pay off very well. And while it seems no Disney movie these days can be without some sort of twist, but it's not a surprise antagonist or a mislead, it's a perceptual twist. Not in a game-changing, mind-blowing way, it's actually kind of obvious when you think about it. It's just a small thing that recontextualizes the film we thought we were watching. But it is so effective. It is definitely the kind of ending that I do not think any other studio could have done. And of course I cried. But you know what aspect of the ending really impressed me? Outside that, it also has one, really amazing visual joke involving the dragon. Okay, so among the dozens of things that suck about the Harry Potter movies is that magic, specifically combat magic, is super boring. It is adults with sticks just flicking lights at each other. I just find it utterly hilarious that the magic fight at the end of Onward is substantially more creative, more exciting, not to mention colorful, and better choreographed than Harry Potter was able to do in 8 movies. As for this movie's theme, I first need to address the title. Yes, Onward is yet another vague one word that tells us virtually nothing about the movie itself. Not that it's a terrible title. It is what tends to be said at the start of a quest, and this movie is about a quest. However, my initial guess was Onward was going to refer to something along the metaphorical onward in terms of processing and moving on when someone dies, or even the deceased itself moving on. But turns out that's their next movie. However, Onward does suggest the action of generally moving forward, but a big part of this movie is actually about characters looking backward, in terms of rediscovering their roots. But I'd chalk this up to an unintentional, ironic coincidence, because the actual theme ties to what we said before about magic being too hard, so we relied on modern conveniences, to the point where the world forgot how to use magic entirely or even fly. Now, in this film and in real life, it's true that many advances were made not just because the old ways were hard, but because they were dangerous. So this isn't a old times were automatically better kind of story. This is about the experiences and abilities you'll never know were out there or were capable of if you always only take the easy route and never put in the effort. And oh my god! You guys know how I've been asking for a movie that talked about our reliance on modern technology without having to turn it into a robot rebellion? This is that! Onward has made that movie for me! Unfortunately, the financial reception could be doing better. The reason for which, pandemics aside, I can only guess that older audiences that like Pixar's maturity thought the premise looked a little too gimmicky, and family audiences with kids might have been deterred by the whole dead father aspect. Admittedly, it is a weird combination. And believe me, I know that this world's details are going to be really easy to nitpick. I mean, that the Pixies and the Manticore were so unwilling to use their wings that they'd rather sit in traffic? Yes, because that's how bad the laziness has gotten. Think about that the next time you make excuses on why you should not get off a couch. But I still heavily encourage those who get the chance to check this out to please do so. Curb your expectations slightly, but the ultimate takeaway is still a rewarding, heartwarming experience. Check out my slightly more extended thoughts on KP's podcast, and you stay shiny, Animaniacs!